Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Stargirl Society, the podcast that inspires you to reclaim your power and start living the life of your dreams. I'm your host, Phoebe Goldsmith, and today you join me on holiday. I'm actually in the Isle of Skye right now, having a little nature retreat, mindfulness moment, and I'm having the time of my life. In today's episode, I'm going to be telling you why your ego is ruining your life and how to fix it. I think it's first important to clarify what we actually mean when we say ego, because it is a term that is thrown around left, right, and center to describe someone who is too proud or that thinks too highly of themselves. But we need to be letting go of that mentality in order to fully understand what we're going to unpack here. I think the true essence of the ego is often overlooked, and therefore people aren't able to do the work they need to be doing on their ego, almost because of the negative connotations of it. So we all have an ego, and we can kind of describe our ego as our sense of self. But, and it is a big but, your ego and your ego sense of self is built around your childhood, memories, socialization, what people tell you that you are, and it is not your true essence, and it is not who you truly are. And unfortunately, many people will go their entire lives only having ego-based reactions. So think of it like this. You have your ego sense of self and your true sense of self. Your ego sense of self is formed off of what people told you that you are, people in your life, people in society, and as you grow older as an adult, what you continue to tell yourself that you are. That is not the truth. That is not your truth. You need to stop accepting that sense of identity as the truth, as you, what society has told you you are, and we need to stop letting it control all areas of our life, which we will get to. The whole idea of this is to be able to recognize when your ego sense of self is acting and reacting to situations, and to be able to act from a higher place, from your higher self, your truest self. It's about looking at yourself and thinking, okay, how much of me or what I perceive myself to be is actually who I am, and how much of it is what people have told me I am, or what I tell myself that I am. What if instead I start acting as the person that I am at my core, or the person that I want to become? And the benefit of this journey that we're going to talk about is the fact that when you are acting as your truest self, you're aligning with your most authentic path in life. It's going to ease those feelings of feeling lost, because when you are truthfully yourself, you are going to attract everything around you for you to be the best version of you and go down the path that was meant to be for you. Because although the ego is a useful tool, it is adaptive for us in so many ways, which I am going to point out. When you start identifying with it or over-identifying with it, deriving your entire sense of self from your ego, that's when you've got a problem. So I think that the main thing that keeps people trapped in an ego-based identity is by mistaking all thoughts for facts. Our ego is a mind-made self. It looks at all information and experiences coming in, and it creates a story of who we are. And that is helpful and adaptive because it helps you to build up a picture of who you are. It builds consistency and an identity. My name is this, I am X amount of years old, this is my job, this is where I live. Taking outside information in and creating an identity from it is not a bad thing when it's generic information. Our mind needs to have a consistent and stable concept of ourselves, of our environment, of people around us. Say you were being told that you're 25, but you've also been told from a young age that you're useless and worthless. What we need to realize here is that our ego is using the exact same mechanism to process both pieces of information and form an identity from it. It doesn't discriminate against the information we're being fed. That is why you need to make the conscious effort to question the ego sense of self that you are being dictated by, whether it's a generic piece of information or something really nasty that you've been told your whole life. Guess what? The ego is going to latch onto it, and it is going to create your sense of self around it. We almost like stability in our sense of self to the point where we will latch onto and hold onto parts of our identity, despite whether they are positive things about us or negative things about us, despite whether we think that about ourselves or someone else has fed us this information. The ego absolutely loves consistency when it comes to the sense of self, and that is why it starts ruining your life in so many ways. But just as an example of the way that the ego will act in order to sort of sabotage us, is that if you were told as a child that you're annoying and you start to believe that you're annoying as an adult, you're constantly telling yourself, God, I'm so annoying. You tell other people that about you. If you try and detach from that, your ego is going to go crazy because it does not want to hear any other story other than the consistent story you've been fed your whole life. If you were to leave behind the thoughts that you're annoying and you're not good enough, you are actually having to leave behind a lifelong identity that you have formed for yourself. And that is why it's truly so important to get to know yourself, to understand yourself. I have an episode up about healing, and if you want to go more in depth with that, I'd recommend that video because I go a lot deeper in how we actually learn to know our true self and not act as our traumatized self. But I personally found this through meditation, trying to get more in touch with my intuition, all that good stuff, because that is what gives you the ability to get in that space between the observer inside your head and your ego. So linking back to what society views as someone with a big ego or having an ego trip, whatever, if you think about these people that are so sensitive and appear like they have the world's biggest ego, it is because they derive their entire sense of self from the story that has been made up for them or the story they make up for themselves. So when someone threatens that story, all hell breaks loose for these people. They're going to jump the gun, they're going to clap back with insults, or they'll try and convince everyone that they're amazing and that they're great. And it's because they are so absorbed in their ego sense of self that any minuscule threat to this identity, they're going to shun away. If you find yourself easily offended or going inwards a lot in particular situations or when particular comments are made, then you're identifying too much with your ego sense of self. And there is a way out. There is a way in which you can rebuild who you are, getting back to your inner child and creating a clear picture of the way that you think. And life is so much more peaceful. You know, when people are trying to step away from caring what other people think, often the advice is to build yourself up and you need to realize that you are this incredible person. And that's all true. But what people are really referring to here is letting go of your ego sense of identity and building up your true self identity. So that is the link. And I think that looking at it from an ego perspective, really getting to understand this concept creates a lot of insight and also long-lasting effects to your life. The next thing to know is that the ego cannot possibly survive in the present moment. If you want to live a more present, a more peaceful, and a more healed life, letting go of your ego identity and your ego reactions is absolutely essential. And I'll tell you why. When people talk about being truly present in its very essence, what they are referring to is whether in the present moment you are controlled by your past or a fear of the future. The reason your ego cannot survive in the present moment is because it is entirely formed from the past. So when you're in the present moment, your past isn't literally here controlling you, but it is in the form of your ego. And if you are having a past-based reaction, an ego-based reaction, then you are not fully present. You're not fully immersed in this moment right now. And when you're truly present, which in my opinion is the key to happiness, your ego literally cannot exist. Say you've had some really rubbish relationships, right? You've been treated really badly, and as a result, you have this fear of vulnerability, you're not trusting of people, etc. If you meet someone new and you get some kind of flashback to the past and your immediate instinct is to run away and push them away, that is a past-based reaction, a trauma-based reaction, because somewhere along the line, your ego has developed part of your identity as being not good enough or around the pain and trauma that you have felt from these past individuals. And in the moment you push someone new away, whether valid or not, you are having a past-based reaction. And the ego will cling on to this identity for its dear life. I think people can be really quick to judge about certain people staying in toxic situations and seemingly subjecting themselves to pain. But to let go of all of that emotional baggage and all of that sense of self, the ego literally has to disintegrate and the ego cannot survive. So what is the ego going to do? It's going to drag you back in. It's going to keep you involved in its life and its sense of identity, because otherwise, if you let it go, it's going to die. It can't survive in the present moment. And I think that offers a very good explanation as to why people stay in the situations that they do. And remember, like I said, these are very adaptive traits. It's also a survival instinct. We need to be able to look at the past and decipher what to do in the present moment or what to do in the future based off of our past experiences, especially things like pain or hurt. We need to remember that. That is very important. But the issue comes when you're just completely absorbed in those memories and in that pain body, and you can't lift yourself out to see what this new version of you and what healed version of you would look like and how they would react. Your ego is also ruining so many new opportunities for you because of your fear of looking stupid or feeling left out or feeling vulnerable. And we have all experienced this, and this is not an issue I'm claiming to be above, okay? I'm doing my own work on this. So trying something new, when the ego crops up, what is it saying to us, and why can we not, for the life of us, be bad at new things? This is something that I have massively struggled with and I'm still trying to work on. We've spoken about this consistency that the ego craves, and the issue when you go to do something new is the ego does not know what this says about you. If there's something that you might not be good at yet that you want to try, your ego is going to be like, well, this is simply just going to risk us feeling inadequate. And if that's part of its sense of self, then it is going to absolutely do its utmost to stop you from doing it. It's going to tell you you're not good enough. You're not going to be accepted if you do these things. If you try something new and you're bad at it, then what is that going to say about our identity? I haven't come across this situation before. Like, I'm not programmed for this. I'm not ready for this. Let's just leave it and completely avoid this situation, because I don't know what I'm going to do if I figure out something new about myself in this moment. Building any kind of new identity will feel like a death to the ego. It quite literally feels like it's completely losing itself. And that's why when we go through periods of change in our life, sometimes it can be really scary, especially if you feel yourself changing or you have a fear of change. It's likely because your ego is going to sit there and think, oh my God, I'm completely losing myself. And, I've experienced that myself when I know I'm changing, or I suddenly look back and go, oh my God, I'm not the girl I was 6 months ago. And it's all making sense why now. And we have also got to remember that the ego is addicted to comparison with others. There is no we, there can be no coexistence. It loves the competition. It's very much focused on the I, how we feel about things. And when any kind of thing threatens that, it doesn't have the ability to have balance, to rationalize, to realize that two great things can coexist at once. It just sees a threat. So naturally, when there's something new, say you're the only beginner in a new kind of class for something, whatever, if you know that there are better people, all your ego sees is a competition that you're probably going to lose. And understandably, it's going to be like, no, no losing for us. Thank you very much. Let's just avoid. And it's about developing the awareness to say, I am not the one who is afraid. I am just watching my ego being afraid of this situation, sort of differentiating and not wrapping ourselves too much and becoming absorbed in this game. So I'm going to give you some concise pointers about how we're going to start practically tackling the ego situation in our lives. Number one, simply just pausing for a sec, taking time, taking space, taking deep breaths in a situation where you feel an emotional reaction coming. Literally anything, any kind of time, any kind of focus on the present moment will massively interrupt what your ego is maybe trying to do. Similarly, you can start to focus on your physical body. Again, just drawing yourself back to the present. also catching yourself when you're trying to defend your self-image. The moment that there is a threat, you're going to immediately want to push that away, but you're almost kind of feeding it in that moment. And I would recommend that you first of all read the let them theory, because this ties in very nicely to this. But if you haven't, that you just kind of start practicing letting people think whatever they want to think about you, whether you think it's reflective of your identity or not. Let them. Who cares? And that will help you come back to your true self and strengthen your own sense of identity. I also think it's important to kind of let your ego go gently and try not to judge yourself too much. Obviously, a lot in this episode, I've been kind of focusing on the separation and showing yourself what this is versus you, but it's not a fight. The last thing you want to do is be at war with your ego. So as much as it's important to see the separation, I think it's also important for a while to just go, okay, that's my ego reacting in those situations, and just not judge it, because it's trying to help you. It truly is trying to help you. It's kind of like anxiety and Inside Out too. The intention is actually in a good place, but is it actually helping us? Maybe not, but let's not judge our ego, because it's still a very important part of us. And I think that also fosters the unconditional love that I think is so important. It's loving all parts of yourself and not just the quote unquote good parts. I think one of the most important things is to practice humility and also just try new things. Get used to laughing at yourself, and not in a bullying way, in a liberating way. Like, try new things, let yourself be bad at them, because that is true freedom in life, when you are not afraid to look a certain way, because you are deriving who you are from something higher, your true essence, as opposed to the way you look to other people, the way you look to yourself. Being brave enough to be bad at things, or when things go wrong, just laugh. It's so healing to be able to do that. And the benefits of going on this journey of kind of recognizing your ego are just so immense. Taking things less personally is obviously a massive one. Life, as I said, is just so much more peaceful that way. I think you'll find that you can make clearer decisions and not just emotional reactions to things. I think also we can definitely communicate so much better when we are in touch with everything that's going on in our brain, because we're not trying to be heard and trying to be listened to and be seen and felt seen. We are trying to get a whole scope of all people involved in a situation or a conversation. And I think above all, you will just feel so much more alive, and like your experience on planet Earth is more worth living and more enjoyable. And that's just a natural thing that happens when you start being more present in your life. I really, really hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I certainly enjoyed thinking about it and pulling it all together. If you like today's episode, be sure to subscribe or follow whatever platform you're on, and leave a comment. How do you feel like your ego affects your life? And maybe what other videos or episodes you'd like to see from me. I love you guys so, so much, and I'll see you next week for the next episode.